Hands-On is sponsored in part by Elmer's Products, Inc., manufacturers of a variety of adhesives, arts and crafts, and office products for use at home, school, or business for over 60 years. www.elmers.com. Dixon Ticonderoga. Our colors, their world. www.dixonusa.com.
Learn skills for a whole lifetime of crafting on this season of Hands-On. At school, home, or even in sports, each week we've got craft basics and great projects, each with 5 steps and 5 main ingredients. And every project teaches a new skill that you can use over and over again. Keep basic supplies like scissors, markers, toothpicks, and rulers on hand. And remember, be creative. Today on Hands-On, we're heading outside. In our quest for lifelong skills, it's a good idea to spend time with nature. First, we create a sit-upon for around the campfire or just quiet time outside enjoying nature. Then it's a recycled birdhouse. Feeding the birds can provide lots of enjoyment for years to come. Next, we take what we've learned about watercolors one step further with the addition of salt and create a 3D lizard. Last up, we feature clay in a tile project using embossed images from nature. So let's head outside. On your next camping trip or nature hike, you'll always have someplace dry to sit with this great sit-upon. Here's what you'll need. You can start out with some newspaper or batting. We're using squeeze brush markers with paint in them, and we have 12 by 12 cardstock. We have 2 colors, and then we also have a solid color. On our basics, we're using an all-purpose glue, a large paintbrush, pencil, ruler, and scissors. So let's get started. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our own background paper. So I'm taking the yellow and let's take the green. You want to make big, bold strokes. On this one I'm just going to do circles. You don't want a ton of paint. You can do a symmetrical pattern where it's the same on each side, or an asymmetrical pattern where it's different from one half to the other. And let's put some X's in here. And then we'll set that aside to dry. And then I have a blue sheet of cardstock or just a heavy-duty paper. I'm going to take my red and I'm going to draw some squigglies. Now, you could do whatever color you like. You don't have to choose what we've chosen here, and use whatever paper you'd like. And we'll set that aside to dry too. I've got my 2 sheets here, and I have 2 that I've already painted that are dry. Now the next step is to cut these into 1-inch strips. So I'm going to take my ruler and my pencil and lay it down on the piece, and I'm going to make hash marks at each inch all the way across. 9. And I do that on both sheets of paper. Then take my ruler, and if you line up the edge of the ruler to the edge of the paper, you'll have an exact line. And don't worry, these aren't going to show in your finished piece. You could also do your pencil lines on the back if you'd like. I'll just do a couple here so you can see it. Now I'm going to take my scissors and cut all my strips. So I'm actually cutting apart the design I've already painted. So we'll end up with 12 strips out of the yellow paper and 12 strips out of the blue paper. Set these aside because I've got a lot of strips already set. Now, what I want to do is start weaving. So I'm going to lay out my pieces of paper, lay out my one base piece, and then I'm going to lay a blue piece on top. I'm going to put a dab of glue here and glue this one down. Then on weaving, we're going over and under. So I'll take another blue one and I'm going to glue again on the top of that and put that underneath. Then take the next one and put it on top. So I'm alternating between the top and the bottom. Next piece, gluing on the top of the strip and on the bottom of the one that goes across. And we'd continue all the way across. Now I have one here that I already started, and now I want to continue putting all the pieces underneath. So remember, weaving is over and under. So if this one is up, the next one is down. So I'm going to put this one down, then weave over the next one. Slide that out so you can see it. Then I'm going to go over this one, go under this one, all the way across. Let's get another one in. And what's important is to add a dab of glue under every single every under or over. Okay, I slipped this one out of place. So slide that right back in. So now I've got that one in. I want to snug it up nice and tight next to the next one. And then I'm going to go back and add glue. The glue is really going to hold this, and it's also going to make it waterproof. So I'll go all the way down, and I would continue until I have all my strips across. Set that one aside. Let's move this one out of the way too. Now I have one here. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to make this really waterproof. So I'm going to put a whole lot of glue into this little container. You could use a plastic cup or paper cup. And don't be afraid when you put this on. It's going to look a little bit milky. But what it'll do is it's going to dry clear and it's going to hold it very secure, but it's also going to make it waterproof. So I'd go across the entire surface of the top of my sit-upon. Then I'm going to set that aside as if this was all painted or painted with the glue. My next step is to take another piece of cardstock and I'm going to lay batting. Now you could lay batting or layers of newspaper. It depends on how thick you want your sit-upon to be. I'm going to take my glue and go all the way around all four sides. And lay this on top. And then press it down so it's nice and secure. Line that up until it's really nice and tight. Then I'd go back and put another layer on this side, put another layer of glue on the other side, almost like a varnish, and that's what will make it waterproof. So if we take a look at our finished sit-upon, it's ready to go hiking.
Our next project is a bird feeder made out of a recycled pop bottle. It's great, it sticks right into the ground, you put your bird seed right in here, and it's a nice project using recycled material. Our main ingredients for this project are glue. We'll need dimensional glitter paints, opaque painter pens, a dowel rod, and a painter stick that you can get free at your local hardware store. We've also got a recycled pop bottle, tape, wire cutters, a pencil, a hole punch, sandpaper, and wire that we're going to use today. Our first step is to go ahead and take our recycled pop bottle and rinse it out so it's nice and clean, and then cut the top off of the bottle. And you may need a little bit of help with this, so be sure to seek adult supervision. We'll just trim that away. It's actually pretty easy to cut. There we go. Now don't be worried if you don't cut this perfectly straight when you first cut it. What you can do is go back afterwards and trim it so that it's a little bit smoother on the top. And I've actually got one prepared over here. So we're going to take that. The next step is to draw out your pattern, and you can find this on our website. The pattern, we can just put a little piece of tape on top of it, rolling it into a curl. Oops. There we go. And then we insert the pattern right into the pop bottle. So just curl it up, tuck it right in. And now that's going to give you guidelines of where to cut the pop bottle. So again, we're going to take our utility scissors and we're going to cut each of these little peaks out. And you can cut right through the pop bottle and through the paper. So just work your way around. Just take you a couple minutes. you can see that that's going to form the fun detail on your bird feeder. So I've got one of these also completed. So I'll show you right here. I've also started painting this bird feeder already. So you can see that I've used our painter markers, and I've painted each one of the little points that we cut out in red. And the easiest way to do this is to fold the point down first, and then just go ahead. These opaque markers are great. They even cover on plastic, and you can see how I'm getting a nice solid color on there. So just take your time, and I'm going to color this whole piece so that our bird feeder has all the red done on it. And it's nice to color in little circles because it gives you even better coverage. And if you found that you missed a spot, you can easily go back afterwards and fill it in. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to fold down the rest of our points, just like that. And you see, this is going to be fun. It kind of looks like a flower, doesn't it? I wonder if the birds would perch on these little spots. There we go. Okay, the next step is to draw your detail on the front of your bird feeder. I've got red paint. I've added some nice red dots there. And I'm also going to add some blue dots. And you can also do leaves. Again, I'm using the opaque markers, and they give that fun detail. You could do any design on here. You could do faces, you could write names, you could write something that you think the birds would like a poem. All right, the next step that we're gonna do is I'm gonna take a hole punch. I'm just gonna punch 2 little holes in here, and these are going to allow us to attach the bird feeder onto a post, onto the dowel rod. So I'm going to set that aside for now, let it finish drying. And the next thing that we're going to make is the sign that goes on top of our bird feeder. And that's where we use this paint stick. And now we have to cut off this little notched edge right here. And again, I'm just going to use the utility scissors. And you might need a little bit of help for this from your parents as well. Cut it off. Now we've got a nice straight band to make our sign. And again, I'm going to use the opaque markers. And if you color with the grain, it makes it just a little bit easier. You can see how nice the coverage is there on the wood. And then you'll probably want to also paint the edges of this little signpost and the ends. So all the way along there until you have something that looks like this. And then we can write our words on that. And for that, we're going to use a white marker. And we're going to write "for the birds." Now, if you'd like, you can use a pencil and lightly write this in pencil first so that you know exactly where your words are going to go. Okay, we're almost done. Our next step is going to be to attach everything to our dowel rod. And I've got a dowel rod here. If you look really closely, you can see I have a little bit of a notched edge. And to do that, I used our utility scissors or wire cutters, and you just squish it right around the dowel rod. We would then take our bird feeder and our piece of wire, tuck the wire through the bird feeder here, and curl it around onto our dowel rod. We'll just tuck it right in there. This ties on right here, and a little bit of glue will also help to hold it securely in place. And it's nice to curl the ends of this wire afterwards. You can use a pencil to help curl them. And then a little bit of glue holds our sign on, and we're going to be done our project. You're going to end up with that fun recycled pop bottle. One final detail you might want to add is putting the glitter paint on top of your leaves and designs.
You might see a lizard like this on your next nature hike. Here's what we'll need. First, we're going to start out with our watercolors. We have fine line markers. You're going to also need watercolor paper, and we'll use a decorative edge scissor, regular scissors, and some table salt. So let's get started. The first thing is to get your pattern, which is found on the website. So you can print that right out and print it right onto watercolor paper, which we've done here, and it'll actually print out 2 complete lizards. So then the next step is to take some water, and I'm just taking an extra brush, and I'm going to brush it alongside the pattern. And I'm going to fill in the whole pattern and the 2 legs. Next, I'm going to take watercolor, and I'm going to start with yellow, which is my lighter color. And you can see on this, the colors are arranged so that red and yellow make orange, so they're exactly how you would use them. Yellow and blue make green. So I'm going to start with the yellow, and you're going to get a very, very intense color. You can make this as dark or as light as you'd like. Don't worry about staying in the lines. I'm going to put yellow along the spine here. And the reason why I put water down first is I want these colors to really run together. I'm also going to color him more realistically by putting it along the bottom here on the stomach. And we'll add a little bit of yellow in the center of each of the legs. Okay, next I'm going to dip my brush back in the water, and then I'm going to go to the green. I'm picking up a lot of paint, and I'm going to color in the rest of my lizard. I'm going to go all the way across. Now you might be wondering, how do we get that really nice finish on him that really looks like scales? That's our next step. So continue, I'll get a little bit more green paint. While your paint is still wet, once you've got the colors the way you want them, you can let that run in a little bit. You can always add a little drop of water to make the colors blend in a little bit better. Put that aside. I'm going to take some common table salt and shake it on. This is a really neat technique that gives a whole lot of texture to your finished piece. It'd be great for a dinosaur or other things with scales. I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I have one here that I've already done. Now the salt makes it real bumpy, so what we're going to want to do is just brush that extra salt off. And it's okay if there's a little bit left on it, but that has a nice rough surface. Then I'm going to rough cut around here. The reason being is that my lizard is two-sided, so I want to paint the other side of this lizard as well. So I'm going to go in, get a little bit more detail here, and turn this over, and I'm going to repeat the steps that I did originally, which is to put the water all the way across. So you're working from the back, so you're working blind, but you're going to get the same effect. So I'm going to put the yellow here, put more yellow along the spine, and then fill in with green. Same step, then I'm going to add the salt on top. So I've got one here completed. So this one is all rough cut. Excuse me, I'm going to pick this one. It's rough cut, and I've cut the original pieces out. Now I'm going to take my decorative edge scissors because I want to give him a more realistic back. So I'm cutting on my lines and cutting down to here. And you could add zigzags all along. I'm going to add it, I think, all the way down to the tail. Lining up my scissors as I cut, so I have a nice scaly back. Then I'm going to take my regular scissors, and I've gone to a finer tip scissor so I can get a little bit more detail. I'll cut all the way around my lizard. And what I'm going to do is, this one has the lines on the front. You could also make your front the one with the lines, without the lines, which is the one on the back. Cut this all out. Okay, so I have my lizard, and you can see I have an identical lizard on the back. Now the next thing is to cut out all the feet. And I'm not going to take the time to go into all the detail here, but as you can see from the pattern, there's a little strip right there. So I'm going to cut down there. And there's two strips also on the lizard himself, so I'm going to cut those. And once I've cut both of them, I would put these feet towards the front and slot that in, and these feet towards the back and slot that in, and then I'm going to have my finished lizard. My last step is to take my marker, and I'm going to go over the design, and I'll add it to the back as well. So if we take a look at the finished one, you'll see that great expression on his face. On your next nature hike, how about picking up some leaves to make this great terracotta planter? Here's what you'll need. We're starting out with air hardening modeling clay in terracotta color. We have watercolors in regular colors and also in metallics. We have a little bit of raffia. We have a rolling pin or a plastic or glass cup, Plastic knife, some toothpicks are your basics, scissors, and some masking tape. So let's get started. It's really important to cover your work surface. So I've laid foil down on my work mat and then secured it with some masking tape. Now I've opened up my air dry clay and I'm going to take about 1/4 of it and knead it in my hands for about a minute until it softens and it's nice and easy to lay out. So I'm going to put it down on my surface. Wax paper works well too, as well as the foil. Now you can use a rolling pin, but you want to make sure you're using a rolling pin that isn't going to be used for food. Another way to do the same process is to take a round plastic cup, which makes a great rolling pin. And you're going to roll it out because we're going to make a square about 5 inches. Now there's a pattern on the website that you can print out, and that'll give you your exact dimensions. You want to make it as even as you can. Peel that up, place it back down. You see how easily it comes off of the foil. Now this is non-toxic clay, and like I said, it's going to air dry in 24 hours. Now I'm going to lay my pattern down, make sure I've got enough, and then I'm going to take my plastic knife and cut alongside the edge. Now you'll need 4 of these to make your planter, and I'd make 1 at a time so that they're all perfect. We'll cut that away, pull up our square. Now your edges are a little bit rough. What you can do is dip your hands in some water and just smooth along the edges, and that'll give you a nice rounded edge. Now the next thing you really have to do too is make the holes that are going to attach this planter together. I'm going to lay that back down, take a toothpick, and by laying my pattern on top again, I can poke holes along the side, which is going to be for lacing. Let's get that one over a little bit. Now, when I lift this up, I'm going to take my toothpick again, and I'm going to put it in and roll it. And I'm using a round toothpick so I get a nice clean hole. We do that for all 5 holes on each side, and they're about 1 inch apart. Now, if there's any imperfections, you can just dip your hand in water and smooth it out. Put it to a drying rack so that you can allow it to dry. Now, one more step before you do that is to take your leaves. Now, I've got silk leaves here, or you can collect some on your next hike. I'm going to push this down, then I'm going to take my cup and I'm going to roll it in. Now you can make full leaf impressions, or you may choose to do partials or lay them over each other. And you see how you get that nice indentation. You can also go around it with your toothpick if you want to get it a little bit deeper. Now we'll lay that to the side, and as I said, we're going to create 4 of those. Once they dry, which is about 24 hours, you're going to have something that looks just about like this. And the first thing we're going to do is take our plain watercolors. And I'm going to just paint green. Now you could choose any other color that you'd like. Now these have very, very intense color. So we can make them as dark as you'd like. And I'd like my leaves to really show up. So I'm going to go in and paint into the clay. You don't have to be totally exact because this is going to be almost like a rubbing. And I'll paint over all the leaves. Use a little bit less water so I'll get more intense color. And once that step is completely done, I'd let that dry and set it aside, and I've got it like this. Now my next step is to take my metallics. And I'm going to choose gold. Dip my brush in water and dip it in the gold. Get a little bit more water on my brush. And I'm going to brush over the entire surface. I'm really loading up that brush well, and I'm going to go right over my green. And you can add as much or as little as you'd like. Once that dries, I'll set that aside. You're going to have an effect like this. Now it's time to lace them together. So I'm going to take one piece of raffia, take my scissors. It's easier to lace if you cut at an angle here. And I'm just going to lace these together from the backs. So I'm lacing 2 together, Then I'm going to add the third one on. And it's easier if you go from the back to the front. Now if you go to the finished one, you can also add a clay pot inside and maybe your favorite green plant. And that's today's show. Enjoying nature is something you'll never get tired of. On our next show, it's back to school and into the classroom. We hope you'll join us on Hands On.
Projects from today's show plus other ideas are available on the web at craftsforkids.com. This is program 1102. Hands On is sponsored in part by Elmer's Products, Inc., manufacturers of a variety of adhesives, arts and crafts, and office products for use at home, school, or business for over 60 years. www.elmers.com. Dixon Ticonderoga. Our colors, their world. www.dixonusa.com.